حي على الفلاح.
When Shith alayhi salam's time of death arrived, he gave it to his most honorable son, Enoch, who continued his work after him. His son, Qinan, who in turn was replaced by his son, Mahlabil. The Persians asserted that Mahlabil was the ruler of the 7 regions, that he was the first to clear forests in order to create towns and massive forts, and that he was also responsible for the construction of Suez, Egypt, and Babylonia, Iraq. He defeated Iblis and his army, and then scattered them into mountains and valley, and slew a huge number of them, as though there was a war between him and the jinns. He reigned for a period of 40 years. When he died, his duties were taken over by his son, Ayat, who on his deathbed bequeathed his son, Enoch, to take over, who in the Quran is mentioned as Idris alayhi salam. Allah says and mentioned in the book, Idris, indeed, he was a man of truth and a prophet, and we raised him to a high station. Ibn Ishaq said that he was the first man to write with a pen. He was born while Adam alayhi salam was still alive and lived with him for 308 years of his life. According to Wahab, Idris was a well-built man with a strong, broad chest and spoke with a low voice. It is also said he was tall, 60 cubits tall, and handsome, and always spoke with a calm demeanor. Prophet Idris was very intellectually curious. He would ponder the vastness of the universe that his creator made from the sky, the earth, the moon, the stars, and the cloud. He was from amongst the followers of Sheth and ruled the progeny of Adam following the death of Sheth. With the introduction of the pen, it is reported in a hadith by Abu Dhar that Idris was the first man to introduce the art of reading and writing to mankind. Idris was born and raised in Babylon, following the teachings and religion of Prophet Adam alayhi salam and his son Seth alayhi salam. He called the people back to his forefathers' religion, but only a few listened to him, while the majority turned away. Idris and his followers left Babylon for Egypt. There he carried on his mission, calling people to what is just and fair, teaching them certain prayers and instructing them to fast on certain days and to give a portion of their wealth to the poor. The people of the descendant of Qabil, Cain, lost guidance, and sin and corruption began increasing rapidly and spreading. Idris could not bear to watch his own people falling prey to the influence of shaitan. So Allah instructed Prophet Idris to call for war against the corrupt followers of Qabil. Idris was the first prophet and messenger in the history of Islam to perform war against corruption. And as commanded by Allah, Idris gathered an army of men and battled in the name of Allah against the transgressors and emerged victorious. With most of the corruptors now vanished, he carried on his mission, calling to people to what is just and fair, teaching them about the plot of Iblis and how he removed his first parents from paradise, teaching them how to pray to Allah and seeking his forgiveness. Idris would say to his people, "Happy is he who looks at his own deeds and appoints them as pleaders to his Lord." He would say, "None can show better gratitude for Allah's favors than he who shares them with others. He said, "Do not envy people for what they have, as they will only enjoy it for a short while. He who indulges in excess will not benefit from it. The real joy of life is to have wisdom." Ibn Abbas asked Ka'b radiallahu an, "What is the meaning of the verse, 'And we raised him Idris high in the heaven'?" Ka'b replied, "Allah revealed to Idris, 'I would raise for you every day the same amount of the deeds as of all Adam's children.' So Idris wanted to increase his deeds. When a friend from among the angels visited him, Idris said to him, 'Allah has revealed to me such and such, so could you please speak to the angel of death, so that I could increase my deeds?' The angel then carried him on his wings and went up into the heaven. When they passed by the fourth heaven, they met the angel of death, who was descending. The angel spoke to him regarding what Idris had spoken to him before. The angel of death said, 'Where is Idris?' He replied, 'He is upon my back.' The angel of death said, 'How amazing! I was sent to seize his soul and was told to meet him in the fourth heaven. I kept thinking, how could I seize it in the fourth heaven when he's on the earth?' Then it took his soul out. That is what is meant in the verse, 'And we raised him high in the heaven.' After the death of Idris, corruption started to increase again. There became a big gap between Idris and the next prophet. Few centuries had gone by with no prophets nor any messengers. But there were the followers of Idris, very righteous, very God-fearing, very obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People used to respect them. They were called Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr. Wad was a pious man who was loved by his people. But when he died, they gathered and remained around his grave in Babylon and were overwhelmed by grief on the death of this man. When Iblis saw them in this state, he came to them disguised as a man and said, "I saw your grief on the death of this man. So should I make a statue like him, which could be erected, thus you may remember him?" They answered, "Yes." So he made a statue like him, which they erected up in their gathering place, and they remembered him. When Shaitan noticed their keenness in remembering him, he suggested, "Should I build a statue of him in the homes of every one of you, so that each one of you could remember him in his home?" They agreed. Iblis then made the statue, and they were placed in each house, and the people used it to remember him. Their children's generation saw what their fathers did for their remembrance. However, when the children came, they had no idea of how their fathers remembered them, and so gradually they took them as their God. So the first one to be worshipped besides Allah was Wad, the idol they named after Wad himself. The result of this was that every idol was worshipped by a different group of people, and after a long period of time had passed by, people started making idols of them for themselves, so that their importance could be fully realized. Thus, they were worshipped instead of Allah. Shirk was finally introduced to the world for the first time. Concerning Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr, Ibn Jarir reported in his tafsir on the authority of Muhammad ibn Qais, who said, "They were pious people during the period between Adam and Nuh alayhi salam, and they had followers. When they died, their followers said, 'If we make statues of them, it'll be more pleasing to us in our worship and will remind us of them.' So they built statues of them. But when they died and other generations came after them, Iblis approached them, saying, "Your forefathers used to worship them, and through that worship they got rain, so why don't you worship them also?" And that is how they came to worship them. And that is how shirk started to spread among the people after the death of Idris. And the shirk took over the world, that there was no one saying La ilaha illallah except Nuh.